Our opening words this morning are written by the Reverend Gretchen Haley. Come in, all who long to know how to love this world, how to keep eyes open, hands unclenched, arms wide, breathing deeply in and out. This is a time to practice, because there is still so much good and beauty and joy, but it can be hard to keep telling this tale. So come in, all who teeter on the edge of cynicism, broken-hearted and trying still to remember laughter and kindness and the chance to be alive in these days when so much is at stake. In this place where we remind each other why we persist, giving each other courage to take this path that is not always easy, to keep practicing this love that cannot, will not let us go, and still calls us on. Come, let us worship together.
Our chalice lighting this morning is from J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Happiness can be found even in the darkest of times, if only one remembers to turn on the light. Our words for reflection today are an excerpt from Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince by J.K. Rowling. Harry sat and thought for a moment, then asked, "So if all of his Horcruxes are destroyed, Voldemort could be killed?" "Yes, I think so," said Dumbledore. "Without his Horcruxes, Voldemort will be a mortal man with a maimed and diminished soul. Never forget, though, that while his soul may be damaged beyond repair, his brain and his magical powers remain intact. It will take uncommon skill and power to kill a wizard like Voldemort, even without his Horcruxes." "But I haven't got uncommon skill and power," said Harry, before he could stop himself. "Yes, you have," said Dumbledore firmly. "You have a power that Voldemort has never had. You can—" "I know," said Harry impatiently. "I can love—" It was only with difficulty that he stopped himself, adding, "Big deal." "Yes, Harry, you can love," said Dumbledore, who looked as though he knew perfectly well what Harry had just refrained from saying. "Which, given everything that has happened to you, is a great and remarkable thing. You are still too young to understand how unusual you are, Harry. So, when the prophecy says that I'll have power the Dark Lord knows not, it just means love?" asked Harry, feeling a little let down. "Yes, just love," said Dumbledore. "But Harry, never forget that what the prophecy says is only significant because Voldemort made it so. Voldemort himself created his worst enemy, just as tyrants everywhere do. Have you any idea how much tyrants fear the people that they oppress? All of them realize that one day, amongst their many victims, there is sure to be one who rises against them and strikes back. Voldemort is no different. Always, he was on the lookout for the one who would challenge him. He heard the prophecy and he leapt into action, with the result that he not only handpicked the man most likely to finish him, he handed him uniquely deadly weapons. It is Voldemort's fault that you were able to see into his thoughts, his ambitions, that you even understand the snake-like language in which he gives orders. And yet, Harry, despite your privileged insight into Voldemort's world, you have never been seduced by the dark arts. Never, even for a second, shown the slightest desire to become one of Voldemort's followers." "Of course I haven't," said Harry indignantly. "He killed my mom and dad." "You are protected, in short, by your ability to love," said Dumbledore loudly. The only protection that can possibly work against the lure of a power like Voldemort's."
So just for the record, I started reading the Harry Potter books before it was cool. Or at least before I knew it was cool. Way before there were movies and merchandise, before you could go online and find out which house you belong in, before those all-night parties at the bookstores every time a new book was released. I read the first Harry Potter book when I was 12 or 13, just a little bit older than Harry, Ron, and Hermione in the books. And it quickly became one of my favorite go-to books. And for a while, when the books were coming out once a year, which did not last too long, I was able to grow up with Harry, Ron, and Hermione. As they were a year older, I was a year older as well. I'm actually not sure how many times I've read that first book. At this point, if you see my copy, it's a little tattered. There was a summer in middle school when I was dealing with some anxiety-ridden insomnia. And that first Harry Potter book became my safe book. I would read it in the middle of the night to help me fall back asleep. It transported me out of my worries and into this whole other world, a world of witches and wizards, wands and flying broomsticks, portraits that talked, and staircases that changed places overnight. It was not a world where bad things didn't happen, but it was a world where I knew and I could be sure that in the end, against all odds, love would win. This power of love is a recurring theme throughout all 7 books. Albus Dumbledore, who we heard from in Peggy's reading, the headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, claims that love is the most powerful of all magic. And we see this to be true so many times in so many ways throughout these books. The first example is, of course, in the way in which Lily Potter's love for her son Harry serves as protection for him for so many years. When Harry is just over a year old, as we heard in our recap, Voldemort was in power in the wizarding world. And he comes to try to kill Harry, believing Harry to be the subject of a prophecy about the wizard who will be able to defeat him. Both of Harry's parents die in this encounter, but his mother, Lily, in particular, dies trying to physically block Voldemort from getting to her baby son. It is the power and protection of her love that saves Harry that night and protects him from Voldemort and the Death Eaters in the years to come. In Book 1, Professor Quirrell, the man whose body Voldemort is currently inhabiting, literally cannot touch Harry without being in pain because of the protective magic of Lily's love infused into his very skin. And there are these powerful protective spells around the Dursleys' home where Harry spends his first 11 years and each summer after that. A protection that again derives its power from the sacrificial love of Harry's mother. This idea of love as a protective force is an alluring one. But in some ways, it's also the concept that feels the most unrealistic from the pages of these magical books. As a mother, I know that I wish I could protect my little one just by loving her. There are days in this world when I wish I could wrap her up in some protective charms and keep out the evils in this world that we live in. But the reality is that I can't. We non-magical folks, muggles as we are called in the books, can't cast spells that shield our homes from harm. We can't infuse our love into the very skin of our loved ones so that anyone wishing to do them harm couldn't touch them. Love cannot actually protect us from pain and tragedy. And in the end, Lily's love can't completely protect Harry either. She can't shield him from the world any more than we muggles can. Harry is not immune from danger and tragedy, as we learn from that very first book on. Before he is 18 years old, he has felt more pain and witnessed the death of more people he loves than most of us will in our lifetimes. So perhaps then this love that Lily gives to her son actually is more like the love that we can offer than I thought. The love we receive does not actually protect us from the world, but instead gives us this core strength and resilience to live in this imperfect and sometimes tragic world. We can't actually wrap the people we love up in some magical bubble wrap, and we wouldn't want to, really, would we? It would get in the way of living our lives. But that doesn't mean that love does not have power. Another way that love shows up powerfully in the pages of the Harry Potter books is the way that Dumbledore describes in the passage that Peggy shared with us, in Harry's ability to love. Whereas for Voldemort and his followers, the Death Eaters, hatred, fear, and a hunger for power are primary motivators, Harry's primary motivator is love. Though Harry is not without ambition, we know, he is not trying to be the most powerful wizard in the world. And though he certainly hates Voldemort, he does not hate him for hatred's sake, but rather because Voldemort has harmed so many people that Harry loves. There are times when our ability to love is portrayed as a weakness, as something that will actually hold us back, that will keep us fearful of terrible things happening to those we love, that will keep us from taking risks. There are times when it is said that if we love too much, we won't be able to see the world clearly. And yet, love is a powerful motivator in our work for justice and keeps us in the struggle so much longer than hatred ever could. Anti-racist writer and activist Chris Krass points out that it may be anger and revenge that get Harry into the fight against Voldemort in the first place, but it's the power of love that actually sustains him and ultimately gives him the strength to overpower Voldemort. In particular, Krass writes about this moment at the end of the 5th book. He writes, "After Dumbledore and Voldemort duel in the Ministry of Magic, Voldemort possesses Harry's mind and tells Dumbledore and Harry that their defeat is imminent. Voldemort declares that Harry's efforts will fail and fills his mind with images of the horrors that will engulf the world. As Harry struggles in anguish lying on the floor, Dumbledore whispers to him, 'Harry, it isn't how you are alike. It is how you are not.' At that moment, Harry sees Hermione, Ron, Ginny, and others enter the room, and his mind fills instead with images of loving embraces that with his family and friends, with his beloved community. At this juncture, Harry responds to Voldemort, "You're the weak one, and you will never know love or friendship, and I feel sorry for you." Through reconnecting with his values and his community, Harry accesses the power of love, repels Voldemort, and finds his courage for the fight ahead. In our own struggles for justice, our ability to love and to connect our struggles with the people and communities we love also sustains us and gives us courage. Last summer, I attended a training on community organizing with Faith in Action, the national organization with which our statewide Granite State Organizing Project is affiliated. As we began one of the early sessions, Bishop Dwayne Royster asked us all a seemingly simple question. He asked, "Who do you love?" Even though we were in a room filled with organizers, clergy, and people of faith, all these justice-minded folks, the answers began slowly. But Bishop Royster kept at it, asking again and again, "Who do you love? Who do you love?" Until we had come up with a long list of partners and children, siblings and parents, grandparents, grandchildren, friends, neighbors, whole communities. His point of asking this question was that unless we are able to connect the issues we are working on with the people we love, we were unlikely to be able to stay in the struggle for the long haul. Our love for our family, friends, and community is what gives us the power and courage in the face of injustice and oppression, in the face of systems and leaders who seek to turn us away from our core values and commitments. This is precisely what Dumbledore is trying to explain to Harry in that passage that Peggy read. Harry's ability to love is a large part of what gives him the strength and resilience to finally defeat Voldemort. The other connected source of strength is the actual community that surrounds and supports Harry in the struggle against Voldemort and in his Death Eaters. This is the final way that I see the power of love manifest in the pages of the Harry Potter books. The truth is that Harry does not and cannot defeat Voldemort alone. And you see this as well from the very beginning. In the first book, Harry thinks he's going to go off and confront Voldemort all by himself. And Ron and Hermione simply show up and say, "Oh no, we're coming too." And in fact, there is no way that Harry would have made it to the end of that maze of rooms at the end of the first book without Ron and Hermione's help. He needed Ron's chess skills and Hermione's logical thinking to make it through. They do the very same thing in book 7. Again, Harry thinks he's going to go off by himself, and Ron and Hermione say, "Oh no, we're coming too." They're coming with him on this quest to defeat Voldemort once and for all. Although Harry is held up as this celebrity in the wizarding world, the boy who lived, the reality is that he's only ever able to be successful because of the love and support of the people around him. And isn't this true of us as well? We are so much more powerful when we come together in communities of love and support than when we try to go it alone. The power of love manifest in the pages of Harry Potter shows up as protection, as a source of motivation, courage, and resilience, as the strength of coming together in community. There is so much resonance here with what we believe about love as Unitarian Universalists. You were wondering when I was going to get there, right? This message that love will win in the end, that love is in fact the most powerful force in our world, is not only the message of the Harry Potter books, it is also the saving message of Unitarian Universalism. We may not have wands or broomsticks or potions to help us defeat the forces of hatred and evil in the world, but we do have love, the most powerful magic of all. When I forget the power of love, when the world feels uncertain and unstable, when I wonder if the forces of hatred are going to win after all, I still turn to this story of love conquering evil as I did on those sleepless nights as a middle schooler. I pull out the books or listen to my favorite podcast about them when I need some hope or courage. These days, I look to the world of Harry Potter less as an escape and more as a reminder. As a Unitarian Universalist, I have faith in the power of love and that love will win in the end, but that doesn't mean I don't need reminding. That doesn't mean that there aren't times when that faith wears thin. And each and every time I turn to these pages, some of them quite worn at this point, I'm reminded that love is the most powerful magic in the world after all. That even we muggles can indeed change the world with our love. May it be so.